Early Wednesday, and desperate parents were seen flocking senior schools, hoping for last-minute vacancies before the second appeal window closes in just 2 days. At the Kenya High School, parents report receiving mixed signals. Some turned away at the gate, others advised to keep checking for vacancies.
What's even worrying, it's watchmen telling us shule zimejaa. There is no any teacher or any management, whatever, who are coming to talk to parents who tell us that hakuna space. So we're wondering, why are they hiding? Kama shule imejaa, so just come out and tell us shule zimejaa.
Despite strong grades, some learners remain stuck without confirmation, leaving guardians financially drained and emotionally exhausted.
Today we woke up at 5 and our only mission is to look for my sister a good school. We actually came from Moi Girls, we went to Kenya High, we came back here to State House Girl. We are looking for a school. Yes, we are tired, but we cannot give up. So now we are not going home directly. We are going to another school. We are going to Pangani Girls.
Parents have also raised concern over the long distances to the schools their children have been posted to, urging the government to prioritize proximity and affordability when placing learners.
Hata wangekuwa wanatupa shule za karibu kidogo, maana tunaweza itajika tukafika, na pia karo ikakuwa ni ya kirafiki kati ya mzazi na shule.
The first placement stage and review saw a very high number of requests, over 355,000 applications for review, but only about 211,000 were approved due to limited spaces and subject combinations in popular schools. The extra review window gives parents and learners one more opportunity to seek a better outcome before the academic year starts. With only 2 days left before the grade 10 appeal window closes, parents are now calling on the Ministry of Education and school administrators to simplify the process and ensure no child is locked out of senior secondary education. Andrin Kilemi, TV47, Nairobi.
Yes, the very first cohort of senior school learners are set to join schools countrywide starting next week. It is also one of the big discussions this year, matters education and whether or not we've conducted this transition from junior secondary to senior school in the right way. Even as we discuss that, a scandal is brewing. And that's what is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Teacher Service Commission jobs, grade 10. They're yet to even to report grade 10 slots scandal, even before they begin. Yeah. Tuko na Mwalimu Wilson Sosiona hapa studio leo. What's happening? A lot of talk about placement, questions on whether it was done the right way, a lot of confusion for parents, a lot of agony. Previously, 844, it was clear that once you do KCP and you've performed in a certain way, this is how you move on. Okay. What do you make of this confusion?
No, this uncalled for confusion is unnecessary, and most of it is heightened by the changing expectations of parents and the specific desires for specific schools, which of course is not going to be possible. There are schools that are on demand. In other words, you can find a school with 50,000 applicants against available 500 vacancies, the national school. I think that is a confusion. But the whole policy of the ministry is that all students have been placed in senior schools, all of them in senior schools. Maybe what we need to discuss as a country, and this I'm saying so professionally, because the world over, admission of students is done by individual schools. Did we do the right thing to completely shift from allowing school principals and their teachers to select students and shifted 100% to technology? Is technology serving us 100%? I was happy the other day when the ministry opened up to the schools to begin engaging manually with the parents on the aspect of admission. For example, day schools across the country, and we know 76% of grade 9 will end up in day schools. That is the practice in Kenya. And all these day schools are within the proximity of the learners. Is technology really serving us even to process admission in such schools where students can move in, declare interest, and they are admitted? I think we have to create a balance between technology and involvement of schools.
But when you say that, Bwana Sossion, if you look at page 5 of the Daily Nation, where schools directly get to pick, parents are now claiming they're being asked to pay between 50,000 and 400,000 shillings for slots in senior schools. And this is where now human intervention is, when schools are allowed to admit students directly and not using technology.
By the end of the day, the same head teachers are the ones who will caretake these learners for the next 4 years. If we are talking about people buying spaces, buying vacancies, that is not only illegal, it is criminal to do that, because admission of students to any secondary school should be for free and should be on merit, and it should be on interest declared.
And that's why they opted for technology instead of direct admissions by principals?
No, not necessarily. I think we must maintain high standard of ethical practices in our learning institutions. The moment we run away from the same people whom we expect, I think taking care of learners is more important than even admission themselves, because schools are supposed to be epicenters of good morals, good practices. You and I, in our time, we were admitted to the schools that we declared interest, that you applied for. It is merit that took you there, and it's merit that takes learners to those particular schools. For me, I think we need a mixed model of the same. And anybody involved with such, you know, if we are seeing in the front pages of the papers that unemployed teachers must buy their way to employment, and Form 1 students must buy their way to be admitted to a school, I think these are criminal things that the country must stop and crack an administrative whip on the same. We don't need those kind of behaviors.
It is 2026.
You know, Fred, these are not things to talk and joke about around.
Yes.
We must get rid of that, so that then we ensure, and I think by and large, the admission criteria that has been adopted by the ministry is the best, and it must be improved. And,
using technology.
Yes, it must be improved, because it speaks to merit, it speaks to interest, it speaks to equity across the country. Unlike what you have seen, some people are commenting that we must now villagize some of the national schools, and that is not right.
It's already taking a political angle, Fomba, but in 2026, technology is the way to go.
Yes.
Definitely the ministry knew that this kind of problem existed, that bribery and this unbalanced way of admitting students is present across the country. Do you agree with Bwana Sossion?
Indimuli, the world is advancing, and there's no way you can avoid technology right now. And I think technology is the way to go, and it's advantageous that we are using it even in admitting students. But unfortunately, there are people who are sleeping on the job, because behind technology, there are human beings who are supposed to ensure that systems are put in place to work. Like choosing a student from Kajiado County, for example, take him to a day school in Mandera is somehow outrageous. How did that happen? It means that someone who was in charge of a certain process failed in his duty. That is so different from what someone like the former impeached deputy president was trying to talk about Mau, Alliance, Starehe being his schools that they built with the funds from certain people, and other people don't deserve those schools. Those are two different issues. And I think he somehow misunderstood what the problem was. So for me, I think we should have people taking responsibility in their positions of their work, especially in terms of creating windows for corruption. Because that confusion is what has caused some students to look like they have missed the right schools, and therefore they are forced by circumstances to shop around to look for good schools, and that ends up in corruption because of competition over slots.
Bwana Fanyamambo, technology, even in the kind of issues or concerns raised by the former deputy president, that there's that placement in some areas of this country is a bit skewed to the disadvantage of communities closer to schools. All that could be cured through use of technology, that the spread of students across board is not based on human, or is not subject to human error, don't you think?
You cannot cure bad manners and stupidity using technology. Explain to me why Ndende Nyoro, when you look at his allocations compared to Junet Mohammed's allocations for a period of 5 years, you see what each has gotten in 5 years. And then you go to the ground and you check what each has done with their CDF allocations for 5 years. It's day and night. We have to start taking accountability. Kenyans mulichagua nani? Some of you go and elect people who do nothing with their CDF. Some of those people who are crying and saying that their areas do not have schools, it is absolute total nonsense. If a constituency is getting 150 million per year, in 10 years, that constituency has received 1.5 billion shillings. Now, for those people who do not understand what a billion is 1,000 millions. So you take 1 million, you arrange 1,000 batches of 1 million. That is a billion. It costs 1 million shillings to build a classroom in Kenya. It follows, therefore, that 1 billion shillings is 1,000 classrooms. If this money had gone only to classrooms, and I'm not saying that the only problem in the constituency is classrooms, but hypothetically speaking, if this money had only gone to classrooms, what would have happened is a certain constituency in this country that has received 1.5 billion in CDF allocations should have 1,000 classrooms. But of course, it doesn't need 1,000 classrooms. It went into many other things. I want you to understand it this way. When you look at something stupid here, moribund, called Talanta Stadium, that thing is 45 billion. Now, 45 billion means 1 billion is 1,000 millions. So for the first 1 billion, we would have had 1,000 classes. The second 1 billion, 1,000 classes. By the time you are getting to the 45th billion, you have 45,000 classes. 45,000 classes, if you multiply by 40 students in a classroom, that is 1.8 million students. What did Kenya choose to do? We chose to build a stadium that will have 60,000 people coming. Now, if you think of a classroom, how many days in a year do 40 students sit in a classroom? Compared to how many times have we used Kasarani this year? If you took 2025 and counted the number of events that have happened at Kasarani within 2025, Nikoshu hajafika 100 events. So for 365 days, we used Kasarani for less than 100 days. Now we are here stupidly taking 45 billion that would have built 1.8 million spaces for children in our classrooms, and we've built a stadium that will occupy 60,000 people, maybe 70 days in a year. All I'm trying to say is the reason we are trying to allocate classrooms mpaka using technology is because we have not invested in education. Hakuna choo za kutosha, hakuna classrooms za kutosha, hakuna dormitories za kutosha. We are busy building stadiums. This country has been led by people who don't understand what the priorities of this nation are. The first thing we need to think is about our children. A country that does not think about its children is plainly stupid. Some of the things we are discussing here, we shouldn't be. Some members of parliament today are supposed to be in jail. Let us go to those people who are saying, we are marginalized, we are marginalized. Marginalized by what? Let us go to them and ask them, for the last 10 years, explain to us what your CDF has done. Let us not be merciful to some of these people. Ile shida tuko nayo si ya allotment, ni ya slots. Our schools do not have capacity. Let us stop remedying the nonsense of not having capacity by talking of systems and technology in 2026. Mm-hmm. If we had enough classrooms, the teachers would comfortably admit children. If we had enough dormitories and toilets and everything, the teachers would. So we have been putting our resources in the wrong places. Okay. And then now we are trying to remedy that nonsense using technology. So I dare submit to us as Kenyans, sisi hatuna shida ya how to place children. We have less than adequate national schools. Right. We have less than adequate extra-county schools. We have less than adequate district schools and so on and so forth. Let us focus on making sure that we have available education opportunities for every child in this country, regardless of whether they are rich or poor.
And that's a conversation that even when we talk about infrastructure, we talk more about roads. But don't you agree with Fanyamambo that yes, the discussion probably should be about education infrastructure and improving that?
Actually, in 2 seconds, to end this problem permanently, because it's going to recur in 2026, 2027, can we tell all our MPs from now, let us sit down with the Ministry of Education and ask, what is the deficit? It takes about 7-8 months to build classrooms and toilets and facilities. To say this problem is not going to recur in January 2027.
Okay.
Now that's a common sense nation. To say CDF zote
even the spread of
yes.
C1 schools and C2 schools across.
It's a problem we can remedy.
That's the biggest problem we're having, Bwana Sossion.
Do you know, if we decide as a country to resolve this problem in 1 year, it can be done. I agree with Fanyamambo. If Fanyamambo can argue on the merits of infrastructure and the rest without bringing the sentimental politics, I think he'll do very well. These are facts. What we need, the real investment in this country now is expansion of schools infrastructure. It is infrastructure, and quality classrooms. We need quality sanitation. You know, in Japan, the first thing that you check in a school is sanitation facilities. But here in Kenya, you look at the quality of the gates. Now we've seen schools are investing in building huge
and the name of the
huge gates and name of the gate. But when you check where the students sleep, where they use the toilets, it's so pathetic. So that then we must look at quality sanitation, quality dormitories for boarding schools, and we must deboard our country, shift out of boarding and get to day schools, for example, and get quality laboratories. We need quality theaters for performing arts. We need all these facilities so that the whole spectrum of an ideal school that can accommodate all the 3 pathways should be available in literally every school. That is the agenda we need as a country, and that's the investment we have. And that is what capitation should speak to. In capitation per child for repair, maintenance, and infrastructure is 5,000 shillings per year. I am working with a school where I'm an alumni, and they're able to save 18 million shillings every year. And we have removed all the old buildings. The buildings that were built by the missionaries, they no longer serve. And we are putting up new structures using the same capitation. This brings me to what Fanyamambo was talking about, the corruption that is an impediment, both at the school management level within the boards of management, at the ministry in terms of supervision, and of course, deliberate participation in corruption, at the CDF and other funds. If all these funds were integrated and we focus on every school, not some schools. We cannot only focus on some national schools and you expand the facilities at the national schools, you leave the extra county schools, you leave the county schools. Let us look at the infrastructure need of every school and map out, and you give the targets every school so that every year each school must be able to deliver on infrastructure of good quality.
It makes a lot of sense, but that's not the conversation we're having at the national level.
If we did that.
Talking about an infrastructure fund of 5 trillion shillings, no mention of education or expansion of education infrastructure anywhere. It's about roads. Moving to first world countries. Who's talking about the knowledge gap? Who's talking about, are we even having the capacity?
Now, let me tell you, the expansion of school infrastructure is one of the big agenda of government. Maybe it doesn't come out very strongly, but when you look at, yes, that's a fact. That's a fact, because if we want to move to the first world, and we have agreed we are moving, the president has said so as the chief executive and the vision carrier. The countries that moved to the first world invested in education.
Okay.
And therefore, investing in schools infrastructure will not be a choice.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
It will not be a choice. It is not going to be an option.
Have you heard that conversation
from
the country's leadership?
From the country's leadership, there's the bigger picture. No. You know, right now we are talking about infrastructure.
We've heard about specific roads.
Infrastructure as a general term. And today I want to express my pleasure with what Fanyamambo has raised today. Today he has come with the solutions, and I must really congratulate him.
Unlike before, it's true.
For the first time. Otherwise, he has always been coming with the problem statements. I think we got it wrong from the word go. And the problem that has, where we have found ourselves today is not something that happened overnight. That over a long period of time, we did not get our priorities right. It did not happen during the regime of President William Ruto. At least that he has acknowledged. That it has happened over a period of time. And now this is the time that we wake up and realize that this was a mistake in terms of priorities, especially in creating space for schools. And he has also come up with a solution that now the leaders, starting with the parliament and the executive, should now look at it as something of priority. In terms of budgeting, it does not take necessarily only the executive to make these decisions. But now, on the issue of infrastructure, like you've raised, the president has used the...
Yes, Bwana Sossion, allow Bwana Fwamba to...
has used the general approach that the 5 trillion is supposed to stand for infrastructure. It may represent roads, buildings, and those buildings may include those schools and many other structures.
He's very clear on roads.
The particulars of infrastructure are so wide, we cannot even list and finish all of them in one go.
From the vision carrier, probably should be getting a clear statement of intent in as far as education is concerned. Are you getting that?
Allow me to tell you something. Allow me to introduce you to something that has happened in this country, and it's extremely important. And this thing is called, in the month of November, our National Assembly became the biggest crime scene ever that has ever been seen anywhere. In fact, I have never seen such atrocious crimes happening on the floor of any other place in this country other than Parliament. They passed something on the 27th of November, very secretly. Actually, it was passed, it was assented by the President on the 21st of November. On the 27th of November, they passed the Government-Owned Enterprises Act 2025. Now, what they did with this Government-Owned Enterprises Act, let me tell you, because it's important for every Kenyan to know this. They created an act, and they said the main objective of this act, it is right here. And Sossion is probably aware of this. Now, I may choose not to talk about it. In fact, they are not shouting. They don't want people to know. They want to facilitate the reconstitution of government-owned enterprises into public limited liability companies for the transfer of government assets, liabilities, and businesses of government-owned enterprises and companies for connected purposes. Let me tell you what that means. These people have taken the East African Portland Cement. They want to make it a private limited company. The Kengen, Kenya Power, Kenya Re, Agricultural, Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Literature Bureau, they've taken 65 parastatals that belong to you and me. They have turned them into private limited companies, public limited companies, whose directors are not going to be known to us until now. In fact, CS John Mbadi, kuna watu wa huko Nyanza wanatuambia tuko kwa serikali, tuko kwa serikali. Munajua munafanya nini kwa serikali? CS John Mbadi has just gazetted the Government-Owned Enterprises Act 2025. It was gazetted on the 5th of December. And what it has technically done, it has repealed the act that made the Kenya Ports Authority. It has repealed the act that made the Kenya Airways, Kenya Airports Authority, the Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Meat Commission. I mean, there are many. Literally, Parliament sat and committed a serious crime against Kenyans. They have taken 65 parastatals and turned them into public limited companies whose directors are not known to Kenyans until now. Yani utakuwa unaamuka, ulikuwa unajibambia unafanya na Kenya Ports Authority. Kenya Ports Authority is now a private company. In fact, the act says clearly, now it goes to the Registration of Companies Act from being parastatals. This is such a serious crime that has happened to Kenyans. You don't know what has happened. Companies zenyu zote zimeenda. So I'm telling Kenyans, Kengen imeenda, sema 2-term, tunafurahia. Kenya Power imeenda, sema 2-term, tunafurahia. Kenya Meat Commission imeenda, sema 2-term, tunafurahia. Kenya Railways imeenda, sema two-term tunafurahia. I am telling you, very important parastatals now have become private entities, and nobody wants to talk about it. In fact, you know the one wanashout huku wakisema juu infrastructure sound, wanakuja wanasema wamejenga barabara ya Rironi Mau Summit. This one they are not talking about because they know it's a serious crime against Kenyans that they have committed. I am telling Kenyans, go online, Google the Government-Owned Enterprises Act of 2025. Kuna kitu imefichwa hapo, and this becomes the end of everything. Mbadi, you have helped this government in robbing. Let me finish by saying this.
I was looking for the connection to education infrastructure.
Yes, I want to tell you why. Now, what they have done, if you want to know how important this thing is to them, sahi kuna crisis ya education, right? The other day kulikuwa na crisis Kenyatta National Hospital. The Speaker of the National Assembly, in his wisdom, has decided to summon the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, and then the Committee on Public Debt and Privatization. Those ones are coming before all the other committees in Parliament. Because for them, selling our assets is more important than the problem of children. You would have expected that the Speaker would summon the Committee on Education and say, wait, there's a crisis. Hatujui grade 10 watoto wanaenda aji. Hatujui kunaendwa vipi. Watoto wako stranded. Parents are having a problem. You'd have expected them to summon the Departmental Committee on Health first, because people are not eating at Kenyatta National Hospital. But for them, because state capture is more important than anything. In fact, for me, I call this the Permanent Presidential Committees on State Capture at the National Assembly. And what they are doing is now they've called these two in to come and help them privatize everything. Nyinyi na watoto wenyu na shida yenyu is not being discussed in Parliament. Nyinyi na hizo shida zingine, they're not being discussed in Parliament. I would have expected saa hii, juu watoto wetu wako na shida ya shule, what Parliament should have been discussing is this. But the committees that the Speaker is calling first, ni za kuuza vitu zetu.
You wanted to challenge
I think we over-sensationalize some things and turn good things upside down to make them look bad. We are not the first people to have a framework like the one of the Government Enterprise Fund. You look at countries like Canada, even China, South Africa, even the UK, countries that are developed have embraced such kind of strategies to have efficiency in terms of revenue. For example, we've been talking about the high debts. We need to regulate them. We've been talking about a lot of loans, both local and domestic and international. And Kenyans have had those concerns. So the government had to come up with alternative ways of minimizing over-reliance on external debt and even local domestic debt by leasing or privatizing to have efficiency. A good example is leasing of sugar factories, where major stakeholders are the farmers. Right now, they are benefiting more than it was previously, because people were relaxed. They were enjoying salaries, because when people work within government structures sometimes, and they are not responsible and they are not accountable to how good they use the time and how good they use the resources of the institutions. How many times do we try to bail out? Is it Kenya Airways?
Yes.
There was that Uchumi issue.
And I would really want to redirect this issue back to education, because I think we've lost that discussion now. Because the issue is what association?
Yeah, I think, Fred, you are right, and I would like to urge my panelists, let us not mix things. We have a lot of time in this world. We can discuss politics at the right time. But I think when you've introduced the item of education, it's a key thing that all Kenyans must stop and listen to. And I think that is where we need to focus on. Where Fanyamambo had taken us on the school's infrastructure upgrade, I think that is where we should focus. And Fred, whether somebody has started something or not, we can start it from here. There is nothing wrong with all of us commencing even here that the school's infrastructure upgrade should be part of the journey of the government of Kenya in moving to the first world. It should be one of the components.
Is it? The question is it?
It should be. It is. At the moment, it is. Why I'm saying it is because to begin with, we have a voted of infrastructure in capitation. That voted of infrastructure in capitation, what is it doing in schools? What is it doing? In some schools, we don't see anything called repair or any new classrooms being erected. But in some schools, they are doing great work. We can see the revolution that the fund is doing. So that then we must ask ourselves, clear accountability questions from where we are, and then enhance the funding so that then the expansion of infrastructure in the country, whether it's roads, whether it's electricity, whether it's water, whether it's housing, it should also include
What do you
schools.
make of this debate that is now turned political, that a lot of the infrastructure in schools has been built by the communities around it? And now some politicians are arguing that those same communities need to benefit more directly from that infrastructure they've developed, the former deputy president.
The lasting solution, the lasting solution. And I'm saying it as a practitioner because I have participated in establishing day schools around the country and campaigning when I was in the other life. And I'm happy because the enrollment in secondary schools or senior schools is 76% day scholars. What does that tell you? That the current primary schools have been used to create these institutions. Teachers have been deployed and education now is closer to the household. So that then the only solution from here is that the country, the Ministry of Education, Parliament, and government in general should focus on schools infrastructure upgrade as a major master plan, as a major actionable plan.
About that national
because
level.
once we do that, then we will make every school closer to the household.
What is so wrong about the claim?
Good quality.
What is so wrong about the claim that those people and communities that have been in charge of developing the infrastructure of some schools in their regions should directly benefit from them? What is so wrong with that claim?
I come from the school of thought that every Kenyan should have a right to study from any corner of the republic. But again, this issue is really being taken out of context. What was raised by parents was this misallocation of students from distant places to far-flung areas in day schools where there is no mechanism of someone being a day scholar while very far from home. I think that's where the problem is.
That can be correct.
But somebody else misunderstood it and interpreted it into this localization kind of scenario, including national schools. Why are they called national? They are called national because any person from any part of the republic is supposed to be in those schools. But people like Rigathi Gachagua, who have a very different mindset.
The new system has done away with that tag of national schools. They just categorize as C1, C2.
C1, and in fact, there are more. The number
but now the position I hold is that every Kenyan should have a right to get to those schools. And then the government also has that obligation of ensuring that there's enough space for all the students. And as Mr. Suna has stated together with the Fanyamambo, why don't we take this as an initiative? And since the parliament is there, to adjust their budgets and ensure that we implement this within the 7 months proposed by Fanyamambo, and we have better schools in future, instead of us struggling over issues that are not supposed to be struggled.
It's going to take a political angle. We're getting into a very political time.
There's something that people...
And again, there's that issue of corruption. You see, even if we have all the money available everywhere, and then there's corruption, then we are doing zero work. Because we raise the money and then it disappears into the pockets of very few people.
Okay.
Allow me to mention the person of Rigathi Gachagua. You know, sometimes Rigathi Gachagua receives a bashing because what he collects from Wananchi, he says it the way it comes out. And then certain people come and say, angesema hivyo kama kiongozi. The truth is that what he said is what very many people are saying, and not just in Mount Kenya. I saw a post on Facebook where people were speaking about a school in Bungoma, and they were saying when this school began, Bungoma Girls, it had only one dormitory. The people within that locality that is Bungoma made a lot of harambes in the 90s to build extra dormitories, laboratories. Walikuwa naitishwa mpaka pesa ya school bus. And now the same people today, they wake up and their own children cannot get slots in that school. What do you think it makes them feel? Akikuja hapo, aone mtoto maybe ametoka Turkana, ama ametoka Moyale, ama ametoka wapi, anaona huyu mtoto ameletwa hapa, na sisi watoto wetu wamenyimwa opportunity ya kusomea hapa. What I am trying to say, is it the right conversation for the nation? No. Is it what Kenyans are saying? Yes. Are they speaking about it in those very words? Yes, they are saying it. So what we need to do as leaders is to stop hiding behind nationalism and shying away from Kenyans are saying. You just come and say, the parents within Bungoma are feeling that they have been disenfranchised because they contributed immensely to the construction of this school, and now their children cannot study here. How you go and remedy that as government, that is your problem. But what we are telling you is what people are saying. Go to Maranda High, go to St. Mary's Yala, go to schools like Mangu, go to schools wherever they are. Some of these schools, the history of these schools is that the community literally donated land. If you look at a school like Senior Chief Koinange, it's called that way because Senior Chief donated his own family land. And so the community, after donating his family land, the community contributed money and added some acreage from that. And now you have somebody from that locality of Banana being told your child cannot study here, they are going to a school in wherever, whatever other place. So that is a conversation that Kenyans are having. As to whether the deputy president should have brought it out is another issue. As to whether he should have said it the way he said it is another issue. But are Kenyans saying it? Yes. Let me end it by saying this way. Some time back, kuna watu walijiita wanaitwa Bonde la Ufa FC. Walikuja mbio sana led by Mandago. Wakafukuza a sitting vice chancellor who had really made Moi University a successful university. And I wish they were saying he's a thief or he has stolen or anything. Imagine they said he's not from their community. They kicked him out of the university. I'm just trying to explain this kind of politics.
The bottom line?
No, wait. You had your time. They kicked him out of the university. After they kicked him out of the university, you know what happened to Moi University. It completely collapsed because they brought an incompetent person because he was one of their own. I think let us never as a nation have the kind of politics that says that we need to have one of our own in a certain particular space just because he's one of our own. Having children and saying that sisi ni watu wa Mount Kenya, tunataka tu watoto wa Mount Kenya wasome kwa shule zetu is not a very nice thing because it's taking the example of what happened there. Na by the way walifunga university yao wakaanza kupeleka watoto Finland.
Before I come to
I think where you have ended is the right place to begin.
Very correct.
It is the right statement. One of the goals of education is national unity to achieve that. It's a goal in education. And the premium national schools, there were initially 20. Now they've been expanded. In every county, there are 2 national schools in the category of C1. I'm an alumni of one. And students are admitted from all over the country. And I'm always excited next to my house to see boys from Mombasa, from all over the country, from Nyanza, everywhere, getting A's and joining premium courses in the universities. It makes a difference. There is beauty when we blend our children from across all communities. It is the sweetest thing to happen. And I have seen alumni of Alliance High School and alumni of Mangu High School issuing strong statements against the statement made by Rigathi Gachagua, because that goes against the goal of national unity that we achieve by putting our children together. What is wrong when we put our children together? Even if we elevate Nyeri High School to be a national school and it admits from all over the country, because the children of Nyeri also will be admitted in other schools. So I think what we need to do in terms of principle is to strengthen the quality of C1 schools and leave them as a preserve for students to be admitted on merit equitably from across the country. That is where we raise the leaders of tomorrow, the ministers, the permanent secretaries, the men and women who will run the country tomorrow. So I don't think we can walk backwards and begin enslaving our children in the village when they want to blow out and explore the world and be part of the global community. In fact, we are not talking about nationalizing the minds of children in education. We are talking about globalizing so that they become global citizens, competitive global citizens. And that is the progress route that we must pursue. So the very national schools must remain national in character. They must be expanded to admit more students from across the country, and we must be able to maintain the quality of all those schools. And we have the presence of such schools so that there is a national school in Wajir, a good one, that a child from say, Siaya will say, I'm joining that national school in Northeastern, and I want to enjoy being in Northeastern. So I think we must be thinking progressively moving forward, but not thinking retrogressively. Like the proposal made by Rigathi Gachagua is off the mark. It has been condemned by alumni of many of these national schools. They have made their statements, and I think that should be accommodated. And we must be progressive when we discuss education. Let us not be negative.
Our first experience towards embracing national diversity was when we joined high school. Because when we got to high school, especially some of the people who studied in village primary schools, that's where they found people from different communities, and it was a good experience. You realize that you can work together with someone from a different community, and it was never a factor. Like when I was at Kibabi High School, and at Kibabi High School we had different communities, and it was a good thing for us. When we joined the University of Nairobi, the better experience, because now the diversity went beyond national to international levels. It is so unfortunate that someone who has been so much entrenched in tribal politics at the national level is trying to teach that to the young people. Because if you embrace that kind of rhetoric, you'll cause these young people to start fighting each other at school. Someone will start asking another student or colleague, where did you come from? Why are you in this school? Kwani kwenyu hakuna shule? You know, those kinds of questions. And it's very wrong for it to come from a leader who happened to be a deputy president in this country at some point. And God forbid, it should never happen again that we have someone of that caliber approaching and getting to a position of leadership of that high stature.
Okay. All right. As we wrap up matters education, a bit of focus on this scandal on teacher employment, TSC Jobs grade 10 slot scandal. Apparently, teachers are receiving letters that are turning out to be fake. Now, this coming at a time when the government had made a commitment to employ 100,000 teachers. They employed 76,000 last year. Intern teachers did not get better contracts. There's been a promise that teacher employment was going to be fixed, but now we're seeing that it's more scandal. What do you make of this?
I don't think this is the problem. Sincerely speaking, when you sit in this country, the problem we are looking at is unemployment across board. We even have so many doctors that are still looking for opportunities to be employed. We have lawyers who are closing down offices right now. We have nurses who don't have opportunities. Wamefanya nursing, but they are sitting. They are looking for opportunities, hata kama ni Botswana and everywhere else. There's a huge level of unemployment in this country. And so when you see this scandal happening, it's because even those slots that are on offer are fewer than those people who need them. I think what we need to be asking ourselves as a nation is, what can we do to reduce the level of joblessness that we have in this country? What are those specific interventions that we can come up with so that we don't have so many trained teachers, and he can tell you, who are at home? We don't have so many nurses who are trained, but they are at home. We have so many, right now we even have lawyers who are trained, but they are not able to put a meal on the table. So it's a bigger issue than teachers. It's about us expanding this economy as opposed to shrinking it, so that the purchasing power is there, and so that people are able to, like now, the demand for health services is higher than the supply for health services. So basically, if we were to expand this economy well, we would enable people who have studied medicine to probably come up with their own hospitals, and they are regulated the normal way that private hospitals are regulated. That would create more opportunities. This education crisis we are seeing now is because we have less secondary schools and high schools than we need. So if we were to expand this economy in a way that Indimuli sees that he has an idle 50 million in the bank, and instead of having it idle there, he sees an opportunity, he can start a private school, a private high school, and that creates employment for teachers. So this crisis of having about 500,000 young people we don't know where we can put them into can be resolved by calling all these billionaires who are stashing money at home. We've seen videos who are stashing money abroad and telling them, look here, there is a problem in education. We are going to give you, land in specific places for free. Set up set up private high schools. That will absorb so many teachers. So the problem is a problem of opportunity.
Okay, definitely scarcity of opportunities in that profession. But we saw politicians dishing out employment letters last year to teachers specifically. Don't you think that that is part of the problem, the politicization of the employment of teachers?
Well, I agree with Fanyamambo that now there's a crisis across the board. But I think what we call policy of training and recruitment in every sector is key. You cannot train personnel you cannot recruit. you must match the training with recruitment. But we went into a spree of opening up and letting entrepreneurs in the name of business to train everybody. Because right now, if you look at the data, the number of unemployed teachers is 600,000. Now you'll follow it up with the nurses. Many of them have been churned through private MTCs. Now nurses cannot be placed. Then come lawyers. Lawyers have also been trained in private universities and the rest, and we have so many of them. So we have massification of professionals in the market, and with a big mismatch of available opportunities. And while that presents itself as a challenge, then we have the poor recruitment system within institutions. Because a report of this nature, this is the first time I am agreeing with this statement from the media. It's accurate because I've witnessed cases where in just one constituency, teachers have paid up to 20 million shillings. And these transactions...
to get employment?
Yes. And this has been going on for a long time. They've paid, they've waited for employment letters, it's not coming, it's not forthcoming. To me, that is an eyesore. And when we are talking about preparing for quality education outcomes, we cannot do it against a backdrop of buying employment slots and also buying admission slots to high school.
Right.
Can imagine a Form 1 to get a slot in a school to pay, that is wrong. These are administrative accidents that must be dealt with.
Okay.
And this one we cannot say, we cannot defend, not even as government. Nobody should defend such corrupt engagements. It must be weeded out. Even as we have the challenge of unemployment, let us not have Kenyans going through this unfair process.
All right.
The recruitment at the Teacher Service Commission and any other institution should be fair and based on merit and based on the year of graduation. So I think as a country, let us revisit the efficiency of our institution. For education, quality education outcomes in this country, we need quality leadership at the Ministry of Education. We need quality leadership at the Teacher Service Commission. And the Teacher Service Commission to be above board, to be corruption-free and serve the interests of the teachers of this country. We also need strong unions. And we need the whole of that education ecosystem to be vibrant, active, and deliver meticulously. And programs in education should be predictable and should satisfy.
Speaking about teachers' unions, and I am aware that the Kenya National Union of Teachers elections are coming up in a few months' time. You'll be one of the candidates. You'll be telling us more about that. What we've been doing a lot of this week is trying to set the agenda for 2026. Now, part of this, of course, political, and we've seen what people are prophesying about ODM and what will happen to ODM. Education is also a key issue, and we've discussed it. But looking at 2026, what else would you say will be the biggest discussion? As you make your final comment, and I'll give each one of you about 3 minutes for that.
For me, I think we must look at the president's promise of the Singapore dream. And for us to talk about the Singapore dream, we need to see how did they succeed. We cannot do the opposite of what the Singaporeans did under Lee Kuan Yew and expect us to get to the Singapore that the president is talking about. By the way, that was a very good idea because in the villages, I realized that there are some people who have given the president a new name, a new nickname. There are so many nicknames for the president. Now they call him Lee Kuan Yew. So how is he going to be Lee Kuan Yew? He is going to do that by embracing systems thinking. And systems thinking means that you must synchronize every aspect, every department within the government to operate seamlessly and to operate with integrity. And one of the things that we need to be very serious on is corruption. We have enough laws that are supposed to deal with the corrupt people, but unfortunately, we have not dealt with the corruption squarely. If we have a general policy towards dealing with the corruption, we'll not have those issues of people bribing to get letters of allocation of schools, TSC jobs. And again, if we are very harsh on corruption. We will not have issues like the one we saw in South Sea, a building collapsing, and then there are people who are not being held accountable. People have lost lives, and it seems we are forgetting about it so easily. I think we need to be serious and charge these people who are involved in the bribery structure within the city county of Nairobi. Individually, they should be held individually accountable. And if there's any compensation to the victims of that collapse, then those people are the ones responsible are the ones who are supposed to compensate their families and not the taxpayer. So if we are very strict about corruption, the conversation around the journey to Singapore is going to be real.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think 2026, the first thing we need to do is to kill that nonsense about Singapore. What was wrong with Vision 2030? This country had leaders who had come up with proper papers about what could be done for this country. All we need to do is to revert to Vision 2030. That's enough for Kenya. Taxpayers' money was spent to build that document. There is nothing, there is no vision like going to Singapore. That's not a vision. You cannot sell that as a national vision. It's actually very stupid to have such a national vision. Nobody else goes like in the president of the US and are saying, in the next few years we are going to be like Russia. You can't say that. It is wrong. It is terrible. It's unacceptable. Nobody does that. It is nowhere. Countries come up with commons. And I'm afraid this is a very learned fella coming to tell us here that a whole country,
even as human beings, we have role models,
can decide that
if we say
strategy
if we say
is to be like another country.
Singapore is a good example, then we can use it figuratively. No. We are not necessarily saying that we are going to work with Singapore.
My friend, Singapore,
figuratively.
Kenya is 80.
And I don't want to reintroduce the debate.
Kenya is 80 times bigger than that tiny state you're talking about. So let's not look
in
at
terms
them.
of quality. We are talking
2026, the only prayer I have to every Kenyan, kitu ya kwanza, mukatae hii ushenzi inaitwa referendum. Do not even allow yourself to think that you can plan to go and defeat William Ruto at the referendum. Tuliona vile walifanya.
Do you think it's going to be a big discussion?
Yes, they want it. They want it. Tuliona vile alifanya kwa Amodhende na tuliona vile alifanya kwa Ndakwa. Kenyans, I beg you in the name of God, the first thing we are going to say if there's a referendum is going to happen in 2032. Because one of the principal agendas they have hidden in that thing is extension of presidential term limits. And I've told you everything they've spoken about is about power. So Kenyans, 2026,
theory. Now,
the biggest... Listen here, wewe ni Mudavadi wenyu kwanza alikuja na hiyo
conspiracy theory.
As I said, the biggest conversation we are going to have in 2026 is how every Kenyan must say no to even the thought or imagination of having a referendum. Mukatae na mukatae na mukatae. Let us talk about the things that are affecting Kenyans. NADCO is not one of them. Yes.
All right. Bwana Sosion, your outlook for the year. What do you think will be or make a big discussion this year, apart from what we've discussed?
Yes, I think key in the year, because in communication, you don't engage what you call shared vision or shared focus. There you lose. The country must focus on one thing, the journey to Singapore. It is real, it is serious, it must happen. And I would like to tell my brother here that nobody has killed Vision 2030. The manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, the pillars, are founded on Vision 2030. If you look at it, it is only that we are not talking about it. And I think it is good we do a summative evaluation of Vision 2030 as it ends, and we begin on another vision. Vision 2030 was supposed to lift Kenya to a middle-income country, which is still part of the journey to the first world. So the president is only restating and reorganizing and re-energizing the journey of the country to the first world. So this country and everyone else should not bring in mixed issues to create confusion. The whole journey of moving to the first world should be the dominant agenda in the year 2026. And to transform a country, it requires a lot. We need a national strategic plan for the entire economy. And we need strategic plans for every state department and every existing institution, up to even including schools, and if possible, even churches and everywhere. People must think and focus
wildlife
together.
Corridors.
Yes, everywhere. We must think about that. That's a fact. And I agree those who have pointed out that corruption will be an impediment, let us all deal with it, so that then we can move the country forward. You've asked me about union elections. Yes, and I wish to state here, I know branches are beginning this Saturday, and this is a period. We also need very, very strong institutions in this country. If you ask me, within the education sector, I've said, we need a strong ministry, strong leadership that is properly grounded and predictable in terms of generating policies and involving Kenyans. We need a strong teacher service. Will you present yourself for election? We will need a strong teacher service commission. We also equally need strong unions. And I dare say, in countries where the education outcomes are good, then there is the presence of strong unions. Unions that should fight for quality collective bargaining agreements and protect the terms and conditions of service for teachers. I will answer that. Yes. Allow me to finish my intervention, because the livelihood, number one livelihood of teachers is actually the collective agreements and the quality of terms and conditions of services. That must be upgraded. As the economy improves, their terms and conditions of service must also improve. We need unions that are able to strongly influence policy formulation so that the country can have product of policies that run education in a very effective way. We need unions, and so unions in the modern world must delve into research and engage in evidence-based advocacy and engage government. We need unions that are able to arbitrate on labor rights of workers, so that then we retain the best teachers in the classrooms, quality teachers in the classroom, to determine quality education outcomes. We need unions that are able to focus very strongly on capacity building and training of members, so that then we have a country that retains the best teachers that can assist the country to move to the first world. And that is what we need. And you're asking whether I will avail myself? I'm a faithful live member of Kenya National Union of Teachers.
Very good manifesto.
And the best unionist in the world. Don't forget, I was the president of EI Africa. Okay. So when that time comes and I am available, I'll avail myself. But as of now, let the branches begin conducting the elections. All right. And when it gets to the national elections, we shall know when it gets to that time. But that is
shared his manifesto.
He's just shared his manifesto. I've not shared my manifesto. I've shared,
and of course he has a good
I've shared a fact of what unions do. I've shared a fact of what I've done in the past.
Our time is up.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mwalimu Wilson Sossion, a veteran educationist and unionist also. He served in the 12th Parliament as a member of the National Assembly. Fanyamambo Kinodhia, political analyst and commentator, also a lawyer, and Fwamba, NC Fwamba, political analyst and commentator. Thank you so much for your time at T47, even as we continue giving what we feel should be or probably will form the biggest discussions this year, 2026. Yes, on the papers today, TSC jobs, grade 10 slot scandal, even before they report to